Welcome, everyone. We're going to give people a couple minutes to come in and then we'll get started. Thanks for your patience. All right, as people continue to come on in, please enjoy this video from our client, Jason Gordon from Total Turf.
My name is Jason Gordon. I'm owner and president of Total Turf Incorporated. Total Turf was incorporated back in August of 2001, so we're coming up on our 21st year. Total Turf basically performs landscape construction services as well as landscape maintenance services throughout Westchester and Fairfield County. We're also the local celebrity greens dealer here in Westchester and Fairfield County, which supplies and installs synthetic turf for backyard turf as well as backyard putting greens. The reason why Total Turf started to look for someone like Andy Gray as strategy leaders back in 2008 is not a real complicated answer. You know, everyone remembers what the economy was like back in 2008. You know, we were having a huge bank collapse of the banking industry and things were looking pretty bleak. I met Andy Gray at the New York State Turf Landscape Association event back in 2008. At that point, I felt like we would probably have a pretty good relationship, her being local to my area. I just felt comfortable at that point, and I decided to interview her a bit more, as well as her interview me. I knew that strategy leaders would be a good choice for me after interviewing with Andy, but I liked the fact she was local. I liked the fact that I could see her one-on-one, and generally speaking, I just had a good feeling with her. One of the things I remember most, starting with strategy leaders and working with Andy Gray, is that we had to build a 5-year plan, which included marketing, sales, finance, operations, human resource, all these different aspects of the business that every business owner should be aware of and should be working on. And I can clearly tell you I was not working in all those areas. If anything, I was working on operations. And that's generally it. And Andy brought to my attention probably halfway down the road of our experience together. She called me on it. A lot of times she'll present something to me that's a change, and I'll be like, I don't know how that's going to happen. And then 2 weeks later, I'd be like, okay, I figured out a way. So it became quite evident that Andy was pushing me. Andy is pushing me in a direction that may be outside my comfort zone. And I learned about myself that I can get there. So that's the biggest takeaway that I had. When Total Turf came across possible business acquisitions throughout the past years, we leaned on Andy Gray and strategy leaders to get a good opinion on whether the valuation was there. From that point forward, we leaned on them to deal with issues that came up, whether it was HR issues or sales and marketing issue. But those were the main points that we hit on when we had to start our acquisition process. Would Total Turf buy a company or acquire another company without consulting with a strategy leaders type consultant? Absolutely not. No way. I mean, I might be confident to a degree, but to do it without a consultant like strategy leaders, in my opinion, would be foolish. Total Turf, since we started with strategy leaders, has changed its revenue probably 5-fold. We've gone from probably a dozen or so employees to 4 dozen now. Customers, we've grown that clientele as well. We've acquired 2 businesses as well. Total Turf probably would not be as successful as it is today if it had not hired strategy leaders back in 2008. Without the knowledge I gained from hiring strategy leaders, going through their program, I wouldn't have had the tools that I have today to evaluate and take a look at things that were opportunities that come my way. So it was imperative, I think, to hire strategy leaders in order for me to get where I am today.
Perfect. Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar, How to Be a Great Manager. We know that employees stay or leave organizations because of good and bad managers. And in this new post-COVID world, learning how to be an effective manager is mission critical for today's businesses. owners and leaders. So we're going to start with a little bit of homework for you guys. Dahlia, can you pop up the first poll question, please? Let's get to know each other a little bit. There's a poll that's popped up. Go ahead and answer that, and then we'll get started. While you're doing that, a little bit about us. Strategy Leaders has been helping build and grow privately held businesses for over 26 years. Our clients typically see double profit and triple revenue, repetitive growth cycles. We truly believe that educating business owners and empowering them is the best way to build successful, privately held businesses that last a little longer and allow the owner to exit on their own terms, which in turn helps the economy one business at a time. So Dahlia, let's go ahead and check out the answers to the poll. Great, so I see some business owners, a bunch of employees. Great, I'm hoping that we can help you today learn to be a better manager. So thank you so much for being here. So Christina and I are your webinar hosts for today, along with Dahlia from our marketing team here at Strategy Leaders. If you have any questions as we go through today's topic, please feel free to put your questions down in the Q&A function or in the chat box. We'll be monitoring both, and Dahlia will make sure that we get the questions at the end. Additionally, if you'd like a copy of the slides for the webinar and or a recording of this webinar, put your email address in the chat and we'll make sure you get that. Okay, so let me introduce myself. My name is Robin. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer and VP of Operations here at Strategy Leaders. I work directly with business owners on strategic planning and executive coaching to help them achieve double profit and triple revenue. I also serve as an outsourced Chief Marketing Officer to various small businesses in a bunch of different industries. My clients span industries like transportation, construction, manufacturing, e-commerce, IT, and cannabis. Christina.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar. My name is Christina. I am VP of Consulting and Sales. I have an extensive background in professional coaching. I worked at the University of Oregon for about 8 years, developing NCAA champions and Olympians. And now I try to bring the best out of business leaders and keeping them accountable and focused on the goals that we set together. I work with mainly executive coaching, strategic growth consulting, and financial dashboarding for our clients here at Strategy Leaders.
Great. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about some of the topics we'll be covering today. So excellent managers mean successful internal teams. We'll talk about some of the ideal characteristics of a good manager, some bad leadership habits that we see that should be avoided, how to implement strategies to overcome and avoid those habits. And then we'll dig into what it takes to grow and develop as a manager. And we'll provide some resources for you guys along the way. And then we'll talk about why we believe that everyone needs a mentor or a coach. So great managers help their teams succeed. There's no one-size-fits-all answer to what makes a great manager, but there are certain qualities that influential leaders share, and here are a few things to keep in mind. Good managers are great communicators. They can clearly articulate their vision for the team and the individual goals they expect each member to achieve. And they're open to feedback and willing to adjust their approach when necessary. The relationship between a manager and their team can be complex to navigate. And there's more to it than the very traditional, just telling people what to do. And that approach is actually discouraged now. And we'll explore the characteristics of what makes good leaders in today's webinar and how to curb bad managerial behaviors.
So Dahlia, would you mind posting the poll questions for obstacles that managers are seeing on a daily basis? Great, let's take a few minutes to just fill this out. Dahlia, when you have the results, would you mind posting them?
Will do. I'll give just a few more seconds here.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's really across the board, but communication comes out the strongest. We see that a lot. Time management is second. And then we have a type of relationship, and some people are not quite sure. And hopefully we'll bring some clearance to you here and help you with some of those obstacles. Let's go to the first slide. So first poor leadership habit we want to pay attention to is feedback. Feedback is essential to an employee's professional development. High-performing organizations deliver roughly 5 times as many or as much positive feedback as negative. That's why we call it the 5-to-1 rule. The better a leader is at giving recognition, the more engaged their employees are. So we want to make sure that you pay attention to this. It's always easy to give critical feedback, but also, give feedback when something is good. Remember, it's important to be clear and specific in your critique, though, and separate negative and positive feedback. Please don't mix the two. It makes it a feedback sandwich, and it dilutes the importance of the criticism that you're trying to get across. And it can create some confusion. What message are you really trying to get across to the employee? Be sure to also provide or work towards a solution together and have specific actions and deadlines along the employee's development. Resist the urge to give personal compliments or try to protect a team member's ego too much. Instead, be clear that the feedback is about their work and nothing else. And negative feedback should be provided as soon as possible. The longer that you wait, the more severe it tends to be for the message coming across. Relating feedback to company goals can help everybody get aligned. Aligned is a word you'll hear throughout this presentation. Effective negative feedback and criticism should show that the person's actions impact the rest of the company. So, for example, have they missed the deadline? Is that creating a bottleneck for everybody else? And finally, to make sure everyone's on the same page by documenting the feedback as well as the plan you came up with for how to fix a situation. This way it becomes more permanent, also gives them something to refer back to. A second poor leadership skill is not requesting feedback your way as well or avoiding addressing concerns. So you want to really work on creating a culture where team members are free to express their questions and concerns. Each team member's perspective on the creative process is uniquely suited to recognize inefficiencies within their workflow. Try and be open-minded and recognize that even if you think you have the best idea, there may be other and better solutions out there. Work on implementing manager reviews, just like you do employee reviews. That could help you personally grow, both professionally and personally. And finally, lead by example. Don't be afraid to admit making mistakes. Nobody's perfect. That creates authenticity and vulnerability and helps relate to open or create possibly open many more open floor questions. Micromanaging employees. So you hired these employees because you trusted their ability to do their job. And so try your best to really trust them and give them as much authority as you can. You want to create this culture where it's okay to make mistakes. So research actually shows that the optimal place of growth for an employee is making mistakes 15% of the time. That's quite a lot. But the thing is, if you never make mistakes, that means you're not pushing your boundaries. You're not pushing your growth potential. You would have more ability to grow. So have this culture of it's okay to make a mistake, we'll fix it. The only time it's not okay to make a mistake is that if you keep repeating the mistake and you didn't learn from it in the first way. So make it a teaching moment and talk about what lessons learned, what were the lessons learned from making a mistake. And also when employees keep asking for help, try not to solve them for them. I know that is often the fastest way of getting on with your day, but that's not a good long-term solution. So have them bring solutions to you and make it a teaching moment. And then finally, set clear expectations for your employees. Be transparent and establish guidelines for giving and receiving feedback both ways. So trusting your team to complete tasks as a whole and respecting everyone's work style is essential. Thank you. According to a survey on employee job satisfaction and engagement, 74% of respondents stated that their relationship with their supervisor was one of the top 5 factors influencing their engagement at work. When companies have more engaged teams, they're more productive and more profitable. So this is really important. Communicating with your team frequently gives you the opportunity to get to know them better, their strengths, their weaknesses, what interests they have inside and outside of work. You'll have a better idea what they want their future to look like and how your company may play a role in that. Ask questions that goes beyond, how are you? Dig deeper, ask open-ended questions with follow-up questions. Find out about their background, their personal interests. You don't need to know every detail about their life, and you really shouldn't, but getting to know what sparks joy for them is an effective way of showing that you really care about people. Definitely recommend host one-on-one meetings with individuals to hear about what drives them in their work. Ask about goals outside of work as well, and try and act as a coach and accountability partner as they implement their goals. When you take a genuine interest in your employees and impact their lives beyond the office, you build the lasting long-term relationships and you increase loyalty. Finally, don't forget to recognize your employees' hard work and celebrate with them. That goes back to the 5-to-1 rule. Next slide. So change is typically seen as a bad thing, especially if you're not transparent and give employees clear expectations. So how do we go about that? You want to implement clear and consistent communication processes around any change, anything new going on in the company, and articulate what the change is all about. Why is it important for the company? Why are you making the changes? And what positive outcome we expect from it to move any kind of fear that we're seeing. Address the negative concerns and be upfront about addressing those fears. Listen to their feedback and hold everyone accountable and maintain alignment in the beginning, middle, and end of a project or goal or change. Define clear roles and a decision maker in charge of the project. And finally, provide training and reward the acceptance of accepting this change.
Great. Thanks, Christina. So now that we've talked about some of these habits and solutions, let's talk about some helpful strategies to implement to help you grow as a manager. All right. So what we're seeing a lot right now is, and in this past year, are companies with brand new managers without much training on how to actually be a manager. Either because companies are hiring managers from the outside who don't know the employees or don't understand the company culture, or because, and there's no support for them to learn the company culture, or because companies are promoting for people from within, but aren't able or willing or don't know how to give those new managers the education and the mentoring that they need to be successful in their roles. So when stepping into a new managerial role, you have to introduce yourself to your new team as soon as possible. A lot of times employees feel like managers operate in their own silos, and we want to get rid of that stigma. So meeting everyone allows you to build trust within the group while setting professional expectations as you move forward as a team. As a manager, you might feel like you're doing a lot of meetings, but there's more, but I'm going to add some more to your plate here. Meeting one-on-one with your team members individually establishes trust for new employees and allows them to meet you in a setting that maybe is a little less stressful than trying to do it all in a group. And then just for reference, here at Strategy Leaders, we do full team stand-ups a couple times a week. And then I like to meet individually with my team members about every other week. My team has been with me for a while. They know that they can reach out if they need anything, but that helps me stay in tune with what's going on. And over the time that I've worked with my team, we've really gotten to know each other, and I'm able to tell even just from their body language in a Zoom that something is wrong or off. And then I can pull them aside virtually, of course, and kind of find out, dig into it. So you'll hear this from me again, but as a manager, you're privy to company information that your team might not be. That can include company goals. If you want to build a team and an organization of mission-driven people, you have to tell them where the bus is headed. Aligning your team with the company goals is the best way to make sure that everyone is on the same page, or at least in the same book. The best way to do that is during your one-on-one meetings. Get a feeling for the personal and professional goals of your individual team members. Christina mentioned that before. Aligning your team goals with the company's overall goals will help keep everyone engaged and working in alignment. Apparently, that's the key word of this whole webinar is alignment today. So also regularly checking in with your individual team members gives you a chance as a manager to answer any questions that they might have, provide feedback, praise them for their strengths, and recognize and address any potential roadblocks that you might be seeing that maybe the employee doesn't see or another team member has brought up to you. If you're discussing issues regularly, you're better able to work together to overcome the obstacles and meet company goals. So setting measurable benchmarks for team performance is key to keeping people engaged, but also to make sure that you as a manager actually know and have the data. Is your team doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are the individuals doing what they're supposed to be doing? Christina and I both work closely with clients and their management teams to help develop leadership and management skills. And so this can vary from working directly with the owners or C-suite executives on how to be better communicators with their employees, and working down to the various levels of management within the organization. It's critical for companies to set measurable benchmarks for team performance. Setting team goals allows you to see when employees are struggling with tasks and if they're ready to take on new things. So establishing metrics is key to understanding kind of where that all comes together. So you can see this quote up here, that companies worldwide are facing a leadership crisis. In this survey, only 11% of the organizations that were surveyed reported that they have strong or solid leadership bench. And that's the lowest that it's been in the past 10 years. And as I mentioned before, what we've really seen is during COVID is that a lot of people were getting promoted either because businesses just needed people to fill those roles, but not necessarily getting the training that they needed. Or they're bringing in outside people to manage. And the employees that have been there for a while may be feeling like, well, you know, what the heck? Like I've been here so long and I'm not getting promoted and there's no clear path on how I get there. So as I said this before, but as a manager, you're privy to more leadership decisions than your employees. And this is where the balance between transparency and confidentiality has to come into play. Keeping company decisions to yourself as a business owner, as a leader, as a manager of other people is hard, but you have to relate what's happening in the company back to your employees, because if you just change your team's workflow without any explanation, that could cause employees to disengage from their work. They might feel confused or upset. I've been working on this project for so long and suddenly we're not doing it. So being as open and honest as you can with your employees is best to do before company policies or goals change. And the best way to do that as a manager to figure out, hey, can I share this information? Can I not? Is to ask. So ask your manager, the business owner, the C-suite executive, whatever it is, hey, this seems like that might be really important to my team. Can I share that with them? Or what information can I share from this conversation or this manager meeting that might be helpful to keep my team engaged and moving forward? And then we have to talk about quiet quitting. So this, I'm sure you've seen it, it's a TikTok-driven trend that advocates theoretically for doing the minimum possible work to avoid getting fired. That's not really an accurate depiction of quiet quitting. It is literally just people doing their job within that 40-hour work week or whatever their work week is, and then going home, clocking in, clocking out, just being a regular employee and not necessarily working outside of hours, answering emails, things like that, which we could all use probably a little bit more work-life balance. And fair or not, this is a movement that's being attributed to younger millennials, Gen Zers, that are kind of rejecting this hustle culture. But my pushback to this is that this is really more of an employer issue than an employee issue. If you have a team that feels engaged with the company mission and the managers and the leadership, they're more likely to stay engaged and answer your email after work. Not that I encourage that, and to take on projects that might be outside their scope. And I think when you're assigning things that might be outside their scope or their job description, it's really important to be transparent with them and let them know how that work helps the company and helps them kind of get where they're going. Another thing that's come up recently is this theme of frugality. So there was a story that came out a couple weeks ago about couples and people quitting one person in that group or in that couple quitting their job because they'd rather live a more frugal lifestyle and spend more time together, have more balance in their life than have another salary. So it's really important. I think what COVID taught us was that, you know, tomorrow isn't always promised. You might not always get to see the people that you see every day. And so this theme of work-life balance and what's important to me as a human being has come to the forefront. And employers really should recognize this, that people aren't working to live, right? Work is not their life anymore, and that's okay. But something to keep in mind as a manager is that people aren't quitting their jobs, they're quitting their managers, they're quitting the leadership. If you have the best possible manager who helps you grow, there's a higher chance that as an employee, you're likely to stay longer and more engaged and want to take on more work or new work or different work.
Very, very true. Thank you, Robin. So one of the first steps taking in developing these leadership skills, if you want to go to the next slide, thank you. So the reality is not everyone is born a natural born leader, but the good news is everybody can learn these skills. So the first recommendation we would like to make is study and determine what leadership style is you. This will help you kind of develop this framework to work within. You know, be conscious and aware of your strengths and weaknesses, and be open to that your leadership style may have to shift depending on the situation you're in. You know, you can maybe act one way with one team, but you have to maybe act a little bit different with a different team. You know, seek out opportunities to be a role model or mentor if that's something that you believe strongly in. Work on developing your strategic skills, moving away from just short-term thinking. You want to go from reactive to proactive. Practice your self-awareness, like Robin talked about. You know, often, you know, you will already know by the time someone's going to quit. You will have had 50 signs by then if you were actually aware of what's going on. Seek to align you and your team to increase output. If you're not aligned with your team, you'll find sometimes you work in complete opposite directions. We definitely would like to pay attention to teach versus giving orders, and understand your own motivation in this. What things we could do or we recommend for you to develop these skills is listening to podcasts. We personally love to listen to podcasts here. There are many on this topic, or you can also invest in management training, either through your local college, or we have a leadership training program here at Strategy Leaders. If you can afford it, set up funds for continuing education for your managers, and remember that continuing education that is relatable to your job is actually tax deductible. So here we go to the communication part. That was the part that most of you struggle with. Best communicators know how to read their environment and how to adapt. They can change their messaging on a dime when necessary. And part of why I always believe managers should work on their emotional intelligence and soft skills on a regular basis. Like I said, this is key for reading your employees so that you sometimes get a head start before you're actually told what's going on. You must decide on a concise and clear message to avoid misunderstandings. That's key. Transparency and being very clear and concise. Become a student of human behavior to pick up signs before they're spoken. That's what we mentioned. Make sure messages are being delivered and understood correctly. And as always, a big part of communication is active listening. So the part about making sure that a message being delivered understood, you could have the employee repeat it back to you, make sure that they actually understood it the way you meant it to be understood. That could be a good exercise, especially if you have many misunderstandings. Then we need to talk about time management skills. When it comes to time management, you want to lead by example. When your employees will value your time and be more effective and dedicated if you do so as well. As an example, if you're often showing up late for meetings, soon that will be adapted by employees as an accepted behavior in the company. You want to respect their time. It's just as valuable to them as it is to you. Learn to prioritize wisely. This is really important. A lot of managers struggles with this, and we suggest familiarizing yourself with the Eisenhower decision matrix for making better priorities. If you have not seen this matrix before, spend a few seconds on it. Another time management skill is calendar blocking. It's very simple, but it's very important. It's an important tool, not just for you, but also for your employees. It's going to increase or improve efficiencies. It's also a tool for you to see what's being done during the day, how long will each task take for each employee. I've heard many managers or CEOs, when I start implementing this and haven't worked with this before, that they couldn't even believe how they could remember half the stuff they did before. It actually gives your brain more time to focus on what it needs to focus on versus being stressed about, am I remembering all my tasks? Finally, work on delegating routine tasks whenever there's an available learner. As a manager, you want to use your time as efficient as possible. So speaking of delegation, from a time management perspective, this is a topic many managers struggle with. It is hard to give up control. Often managers are perfectionists. Only 30% of managers believe that they can delegate well, and only a third of them is considered to be a good delegator by their teams. This is clearly a problem. Delegation is a vital tool of management that not enough people do well. You want more time to do the things that you know will contribute to growth, profits, and peace of mind. To do so, you must free yourself from routine tasks that others can do, and some routine tasks for which others may have even better skills or ability than you do. Delegating will also help people, motivate them and to take on more responsibilities, but there are times when you should stay away from delegating at all costs, especially when there's too much at stake, when tasks are clearly above someone's capacity, capability, or confidence. That's why we really recommend delegating routine tasks in the beginning. If you're interested, we have a delegation exercise worksheet to help you improve delegating more effectively. If you put your email in the chat, we will email it to you after the webinar. Finally, company culture. Modern candidates rank company culture as one of the most important factors when they're considering opportunities, and they can spot a bad company culture from a mile away. It does not take very long to figure that out. It can also be a really good recruiting tool if you start working on implementing a strong company culture. So create a positive culture of leadership and mentoring on all levels. That is really important. Build a culture of people that are passionate about something that can unite them. Maybe you want to unite around a nonprofit. Uniting around a common cause can help bring the team together. You work towards a common goal and can be incredibly rewarding. And then you want to look into when you're hiring, hire people that are hungry for knowledge, continuously feed that hunger with stipends and opportunities to learn. This is one of the things we definitely think is very important when you're looking into hiring. Create a culture around transparency. We talked about that. Maybe err on the side of oversharing sometimes so that everyone is on the same page, ensuring time and resources aren't lost due to miscommunication. So I've heard stories of companies giving out annual cash allowance for self-care, showing that you really care about your employees' health. Some companies give out an extra paid week after 2 years in the company as a thank you. So I don't think that the time of the gold watch's end of 50-year employment is any longer relevant to how we work and live. Now you really should care about the well-being of your employee, check in on them often. What I talked about, go beyond the how are you, and show genuine interest in who they are and what matters to them.
Great, thanks, Christina. So we're going to talk about why everyone needs a mentor or a coach. So everyone needs a coach, and I'll tell you right now that even coaches have coaches just the same way that therapists have therapists. So working with a mentor or coaching partner can set up new managers for success by providing support and expert knowledge. Finding a management mentor or an executive coaching partner early in your management position, and especially as a business owner, can help set strong foundation for a new manager's development or an existing manager's role. So actually here at Strategy Leaders, one of our top services is executive coaching. Our need from our clients ranges anywhere from needing to develop interpersonal skills, to time management skills, to strategic planning, or even a leadership approach. We have, business owners tend to operate in silos. They've gotten used to this, I'm in it, I'm on it, I'll get it done. Everything relies on me, and that's okay. And along the way, they tend to lose their ability to actually translate their message to their employees and their leadership team, or to translate it and send it down in an effective way. So sometimes we just need to work with people on how to communicate better and be more effective. I have a client actually that needs help just getting mundane tasks done that only he can do. He doesn't want to sit there and do his proposals and his invoicing, and he'd rather go out and be with clients. And so I sit with him as an accountability partner once a week or every other week, so he can get those tasks done uninterrupted. It really is just about what leaders and owners need at that point in time. So we talked earlier about the importance of change within an organization. As a company grows and adds new team members, managers have to be willing to learn how to adapt and grow themselves. And we understand that change can be scary for some, and a good way to show your team that you're in line with them is to work on yourself as a leader or a manager. So working with a coach who gives those managers and leaders a person that they can learn from, and you'll feel more confident in your role. There's something called the Peter Principle. You don't know what you don't know. And so having someone that you can confidently and confidentially speak to about, here's what I'm facing, here's the issues, I don't know how to get this done, I need help, can help you feel secure in growing and developing as a business owner and as a manager. And as your business grows, so does the need for information and skills, right? So especially as a manager, you get new team members, goals change, whatever it is, and we've got to figure out, how can I adapt myself as a manager, because people are looking towards me to help guide those decisions and to make sure that no one underneath me and the employees on the front line are panicking about what's going on. So our clients, for example, they know that they don't have all the answers. It's one of the things that we screen for in our sales process. And they're looking to get help so that they can move to the next level faster with fewer mistakes. And that's really the key here when you have an executive coach or a mentor, is to get to where you need to go with someone else that has your back. So we talked a lot today. But we want to give you our 5 takeaways on how to be a better leader. So communication is key, and it's key to having a happy and healthy work environment. You should work on clearly articulating your vision for your team and the individual goals that you expect each member to achieve. And stay open to feedback. Be willing to adjust your management approach when necessary. Practice active listening to stay updated on your team's thoughts and feelings. And always look for leadership learning opportunities, whether that's through online courses, webinars. We talked about podcasts. We do genuinely love podcasts here, or hiring an executive coach. And with that, that's the end of our webinar today. We have one more poll question for you guys. Dolly, if you could pop that up now. Let us know what content you'd like to see from us in the future. Our next webinar is November 15th. And we're going to talk about burnout. That's a big topic. I wrote about it a lot during COVID and talked about it a lot. And, it's still prevalent. So I hope you can attend. If you'd like an invite to that webinar, let us know in the chat. Dahlia, when this is ready, let us know. All right. And with that, we're going to open it up for questions.
Awesome. Okay, so to start, we have one question. How do you monitor the performance of the people that you have to lead? Do you have any tips on the best way to keep on top of this?
Sure. This is, it's definitely a hot topic. We hear this a lot from our clients and from business owners, especially having remote employees. It feels very hard to manage them and make sure they're doing their work. Christina mentioned before that you've hired these people because you trust them to do their job. But the best way probably to do that is, one, regular check-ins with them, understand what the company goals are, and then set up the tasks that move along, help move that along. We call them next action steps. So if we're setting a goal for the end of the year or next year, what tasks do we need to accomplish between now and then, with due dates and who's responsible for them? And then you can also create some KPIs or benchmarking. And if you don't know how to do that, we'd be happy to help you here. We do that a lot for our clients.
I would like to step in on that, absolutely, with the benchmarking and KPIs. I don't want anybody to look at that as micromanagement. It's more like a monthly score sheet. We do monthly score sheets with our clients on their financial dashboards, and I think our clients actually look forward to it. It's kind of like a progress report, and where are we? Are there anything sticking out? Anything we need to work on? It's just having this open communication, and I think it's important to start having that on a monthly basis and a regular basis. So it's not just about accountability. Yes, as a manager, you will see what's going on and what struggles there are, but it's also about having this score sheet of seeing continued progress along the way.
Great answers. Agreed. Okay, so second question. What are your favorite options for developing leadership skills or brushing up on them? Of all that you mentioned, is there any that you guys think are the best overall?
Good question. So let me start with, it really depends on what kind of learner you are. I am an auditory learner. So I love podcasts. I am also very active in the fitness and weightlifting world. And the best way that I learn things is to find podcasts with experts who talk about that. And the same with business. I read a ton of books, either through listening to the books or actually reading them. And then what I like to do is from those books, kind of make my notes. These are my key points from this. How do I actually apply that? And then I think it's critical to have a coach or a mentoring partner, someone that you can say, hey, I saw this thing, or I'm not sure how I got this done. Can you help me with this? Or what's your experience with this? And then I have developed a group of next gen leaders. So they're, like young professionals, and we have a WhatsApp chat. So anytime that something's come up, we just chat each other and we say, hey, I'm really running into this issue. I'm not sure what to do about it. And everyone has a different opinion, and it really brings a lot of differing support and solutions to problems.
Awesome. Okay, the next question is, what if your CEO is a micromanager and pushes you to follow through in the same way with the staff? So, for example, the CEO asks for every single project manager to CC him on every call, every follow-up, monthly reports, etc.
That's a good question. We have definitely seen that here as well. Obviously, it sounds like the company is lacking trust, right? How do you go to your CEO and talk about that? That is, I don't know the specific situation, obviously, but there has to be a conversation about trust and how, like it goes back to, you shouldn't hire someone that you do not trust, but this goes the opposite way. As I'm understanding the question, this is a manager where the CEO may not trust the manager, correct? It can be a hard conversation to be had, but it's a conversation that you have to have, because otherwise this will be the situation where you may absolutely end up quitting because, well, like we said, we typically quit because we don't get along with whoever is our direct report. So that is a tough conversation, but it has to be had. And often, in my experience, CEOs, they actually appreciate honesty. It's much better than, talking behind the CEO's back, because like I said, hopefully they have EQ enough that they can read something is going on. If they don't, it's a matter of having that tough conversation and push for that. You demand that because you need to be happy in your job. Otherwise you can't produce what you need to produce.
I think probably the other thing to add here is that the trust, it probably is a trust issue, but that CEOs, business owners, this is their baby, right? They want to make sure that everything is going to run smoothly. And so they're really, in theory, obviously, I don't know the specifics, coming from a place of respect what you inspect, right? And wanting to be on top of everything. So I think having that conversation, but also adding in there, are there benchmarks or metrics or goals that we should work together on? So that you can see that all the tasks that my team is doing actually do align and accomplish those goals. Because some people just really need data. And a lot of times CEOs start to feel like once they build these management levels that they're actually just removed from the front line. And that can make them feel a little bit insecure about what's going on. because they don't talk to your staff. They don't talk to those frontline employees. They don't understand like, oh, are they actually doing work? Are they getting things done? Or are you as a manager just compensating for a lack of skill? So it is really important to be open and honest with your CEO and just say, hey, this is what I'm noticing. Here's what my team has been accomplishing. I don't think it's in your best interest that you're CC'd on literally every email. You have better things to do. What can I do to make you feel more secure in the decisions that are being made underneath you?
Yeah.
Awesome. And going off of that, we actually got a question that fits in perfectly with that. And it's, as a leader, how can you align the purpose of the company with the purpose of the employees?
Yeah, so the first thing is really transparency to say, you know, this is my goal for the company. In, 5 years, I want to exit or whatever it is. I want to be this size. We want to do this. We want to get into this market, right? And being open and honest with as much as you feel comfortable, but with your employees and your management team, so that everybody is starting to get aligned on this one path towards, okay, the ultimate goal is X. We need to do all these things to get there. And then to track everything that goes into getting there. And writing things down and really making it a habit to talk about company goals, not just everyone here is a cog in a machine and they do their job and they keep their head down and they move forward. It's having these regular meetings where everyone feels like they're contributing to the mission and the direction of the business.
It's also a matter of, the employee's alignment with the company's alignment doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same goal, but you're looking at the strength of an employee. And if they are really strong in one area, you can work on building that and pushing that while they're working towards the goal of the company. So the goals are working, alongside of each other, and both feel like they have a purpose, but they're still actually in the end going to accomplish the same goal. It's really, sometimes, employees may not be in the right role. They may not be where they feel like they're being the best utilized. So it's about having that open conversation about what strengths do you have? Where do you see yourself going in the next year? I mean, we sometimes do an exercise. Instead of having a regular review, we will give the employees a piece of paper, write down what you want the title to be in a year from now, what salary would you like to make, but on the other hand, what are you going to do to actually achieve those things? And that means that all of a sudden they're really engaged in what's going on there. They're engaged in the goals, and they're engaged in, moving their own career ahead. And as long as you can align that, that can be a very effective way of motivating employees and getting them aligned with the company.
Okay, great. So we have a really interesting question. How do you manage when you are younger than those that report to you?
So I can relate that to, I was a female coach at the University of Oregon. They're very, very male-dominated area. So I'm aligning it to male-female versus young-old, but it's the same concept. I had to coach a group of 20 young men, and they were not used to a female coach. And I came in, and some of them questioned me. How can I manage boys? How can that work? And I was just being very confident in my skills. I knew while I was there, I was recruited to get there and to take this team ahead. And I literally just let my work speak for itself, as hard as that is, but be confident in yourself. You are there for a reason. You clearly must have the skills, and you must be awesome because you're there. So great job being there as a young leader, and work on inspiring them. Your work will speak for itself. It did not take very long for these young men to buy in to what I was doing, because they saw the results came very quickly. And once you have the buy-in, it's going to be much easier for you.
Yeah, I would add here that we see this a lot actually when some of our consultants join the team and they're younger and they feel like, how can I manage business owners and help them at my younger age? This is probably not the best advice, but normally what I tell them is fake it till you make it. You've just got to be confident. If you don't feel confident, you've got to learn how to harness that confidence within you. Sandler's sales system talks about who you are internally versus who you project. So my old Sandler trainer used to say, when Beyonce goes on stage, she's Beyonce, right? Anything that you could boo her, you can heckle her. I don't know who would do that, but you could do that. and she doesn't care because she's the character, she's playing a character, she's playing a role. And so none of that negativity affects her, and she's developed that character, versus when you come home and you're just yourself on the couch in your sweatpants, right? They're different roles. And so when you walk into work, you need to, or sign into work if you're remote, you need to appear confident. I think the other thing to add is that employees want to know that as a manager, you have their back, right? That you're willing to an extent, kind of step out in front of them to take the brunt from the C-suite or the business owner, and relay their concerns. And I think if you're running into an issue where maybe the people you manage are giving off weird vibes and they don't trust you, is to have those one-on-one conversations with them. Hey, I've noticed this. Maybe I'm interpreting this incorrectly, but I'd love to get your feedback about something. And I think really involving them in what's going on and company decisions and how we're moving forward, that'll all help to kind of garner this trust.
Absolutely, completely agree. So speaking of younger individuals, how can you handle a team of younger individuals to get them to follow instructions? And as a leader, how can you strike a balance between being assertive and compliant?
I think I can jump in here because my team is younger than I am. They're not children. They're full-blown adults that you've hired because they have a skill set or, some sort of brain power that you want to bring to your team. You should manage them exactly like you would any other employee, except for the fact that perhaps they communicate in a different way. Maybe they don't like to be on the phone. Maybe they'd rather text you, Teams you, Slack you. Maybe they don't necessarily know how more archaic types of software work, things like that. And so there might be a learning curve in terms of, is your company and the technology and the things that you use, is that a little bit out of date for your younger employees? But in terms of managing them and getting them on the same page, it's essentially the same as every other employee. You have to keep them engaged and active and be transparent with them. And what I find is that most young people are really mission driven. They join companies because they like the culture. Christina mentioned that earlier. Culture fit is probably the number one thing right now. You've got to get them drawn to your mission. And if your company culture isn't working, then it might be time to look inside and internally and say okay, what's up with their company culture? How do we make some edits to it? How do we really dive into what our mission is, and how do we get people focused? But they're just people. You just manage them like people, understand how they communicate, and do your best.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think a good place to finish off these questions, can you give advice on how to keep these strategies in place and on track?
Yeah, I saw that question come from Rick. So honestly, the best way to do it is build a habit. You have to make it part of your culture, a learning culture where we are trying to, business owners are not infallible. Managers are not infallible. We as leaders have to take it upon ourselves to build this habit of growth and development. And then we have to take time out of our regular scheduled business to make sure that our team is doing the same thing. Education and growth is key to building a really great organization. So I would say pick and choose. You can only do a couple things at once. So pick maybe your top 3 priorities on what strategies would make you a better manager, and then figure out what tasks in between you need to check off, what actions you need to do regularly to make sure that we're hitting those goals. I want to be a better communicator. Sometimes we have clients that can disappear, right? That for a month, they don't talk to their staff. That doesn't always work. And then what happens is they come back and they immediately have to micromanage. So some actions that we might take in there is to say, hey, we can't do that. You either disappear or you don't disappear. And if you need to go away, we have to put things in place so that your team understands that. But maybe, once a week we check in with our immediate staff. Maybe you have a chief of staff or an executive assistant or an admin that helps you kind of disperse your messaging out to other people, and start to really build those habits as a leader, because everything trickles down.
Okay, good to know. And so here's one from Jay that he sent in the chat. He says, sometimes there are employees who resist any change, effort, and culture change. Those people can be individuals who are not easily replaceable and could hurt the company if they left. All efforts to change them are met with failure. It may make sense to leave them alone, i.e. seasoned sales rep. Problem is, it hurts effort with others when they see a person getting away with not changing.
Yeah, the fastest way to ruin motivation as a team is accepting behavior of someone like that. Remember, your team is only as strong as your weakest player. It's really important to build strong teams, but I understand in this hiring situation we're in right now, some owners feel that they're left hostage a little bit, right? And that is a big problem, but I definitely would say that is a problem from team morale. There's nothing worse than seeing a leader accepting behavior of someone like that. I would definitely strongly recommend finding a different solution.
Yeah, I think to add here is, from an HR standpoint, is you have to bring that person into a conversation with yourself and someone else, probably if you have an HR person or someone else in your organization who's also at the same management level as you, and have a serious conversation about what's going on. Why are we acting like this? This behavior is not okay. You have to document everything that's going on, put it in a file, and tell them, you know, here's the things that need to change by this date. If they don't, the next step is you won't be here. What you don't want, and I get hiring right now is crazy. It's really difficult. People are more picky about the jobs they take, but you can't let an organization be held hostage by an employee just because you might not be able to replace them. You've got to figure out another solution.
Okay, and we just had one more question come in through the Q&A. So, my company uses a time clock. Team members are supposed to dock at a low 5 hours or work, etc. I have provided literature, Loom videos, integrations to make this easier. Still a lot of inconsistencies. I set a date for mid next month to review. What should my next steps be if I still see major inconsistencies? My next step would be bringing the CEO on individual one-on-ones with the offenders.
So the way that I'm understanding this question is that your company requires people to use a time clock, and that people are not actually clocking in or clocking out, or they're forgetting to do one or the other. I think probably the best way to get around that is, one, if you've already talked to the individual offenders and they're not doing it, and they're just like, I'm not, go away, I'm not going to do it, you can't make me, then yes, we have to escalate that to the next level of management, whether that's your CEO or someone right above you. But if it's simply because, oh, I forgot, or I just, you know, I got sidetracked working with a client or on this project, what I tell people is put it in your calendar. So in the morning, clocking in should be pretty simple, right? Clock in, fine. Clocking out is usually where I see the biggest issue. And so I would just say, okay, you're done at 5. In your calendar, put a reminder at 5 o'clock or 4:59 to go clock out. And then you can say, this is how many times you haven't clocked out. This is unacceptable. If you continue to do that, I'm going to have to put it in your record. You know, make it tangible for them so that they feel like there's a reason that they should clock in and out. But if it's, again, a person who just doesn't care about your company policies, that's a completely different conversation. I also want to say that clock in, clock out culture is really hard. And a lot of people feel like very constrained, mentally constrained by clock in, clock out. So if you have full-time employees, maybe you should be looking at your company policies for, do you really even need clock in, clock out? Why did we adopt that policy in the first place? Is it because I feel like people aren't doing work, or is it because they're hourly and I need to actually track their hours?
Great answer. Well, I think that does it for our questions today. Thank you, Christina and Robin, for your awesome answers. And thank you everyone for the great questions. We appreciate getting such deep and interesting questions.
Great.
Great questions, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.